Good morning, everybody. How are you? Happy Friday. Happy end of the week. Can't wait to share more time with you here on in our data science community. It is a beautiful day out where I live, a little bit cold, but overall a good day. Really looking forward to spending this time with you and really looking forward to the weekend and beyond that. So many things going on, so many things to talk about. So really can't wait to get started on all of this with you. So I hope you're well. Welcome. I'm still getting a lot of new viewers on all of my platforms. So please let me know your city, state, province, country. And we do that as part of our global roll call. It's just a nice way to keep the chat professional, keep you as part of the community and whatnot. After that, I like to give an opening note where I share with you a couple of different thoughts, maybe something to think about. And then from there, I go ahead and open it up to questions. I let you guys set the agenda. Whatever topics are on your mind is what we're going to talk about. I love being able to take on different people's questions and perspectives and just kind of go from there, just see where we end up. So thank you so much for being here. Really hope that you're looking forward to the weekend. It is going to be a great weekend on my end because it's basically the start of the Consumer Electronics Show this weekend. And as most of you know, I will be providing coverage to all of you from that show. So really excited. Today's my first event or, mini event where I have to go pick up my credentials. I was fortunate to get a media access badge. So I'm going to be going to go down there to the show location and pick up my badge. And then Sunday is the first event. So really excited to see where that content will end up. I've been prepping some different things for all of us. So good day, a good day to start today, a good way to start the weekend, and lots of things coming up. Can't wait for them. I really can't tell you guys how excited I am to have this content coming up with CES and all of that. I've had a couple of people ask me what exactly CES is. So for those of you that don't know, CES stands for the Consumer Electronics Show. And it's the largest trade show of its kind and one of the largest in the world. I think there's a couple others that are larger. But basically anything that relates to consumer electronics. So appliances, televisions, computers, chips, cars, anything that's consumer and electronic is at this show. And obviously, that includes a lot of AI items, right? A lot of AI-enabled companies, products, services are going to be at the show. So that's my main goal. My main goal is to go and focus on the AI. I'm going to ignore the TVs. I'm going to ignore the high-tech vacuum cleaners and the consulting companies. I'm going to ignore all of that. And I'm going to say, what can I bring to the audience? What are the things that are relevant from CES that would be of importance to you guys? So I got my walking shoes on. I'm going to be going all over the show floors. I got a couple of private demos already lined up. Doing my research on a couple of companies. I was telling my moderators that one of the interesting things is that, because I'm on the media list, I'm getting a lot of pre-show press releases, right? People saying, hey, this is our product, come by our booth, come talk to us, so on and so forth. And the interesting companies, I definitely mark in my planner because I want to visit them. I want to spend some time with them. But guys, I get a lot of companies that are just like, I don't know if they're gonna make it. Like some of the AI ideas, or I guess I should say AI ideas that they have in mind. I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna make it, guys. Some of these companies are definitely a little bit iffy. So we'll see. We'll see where all that research ends up. You know me. I give you guys straight information, and we'll see. We'll see where we end up. I'm seeing a couple of people over on Instagram Omar, let us know where you're from. We always ask people to let us know their city, state, province, country. Um, is it Anise? Anise, I guess is the name. I also see you over on Instagram. Let us know your city, state, province, country. We always ask people to introduce themselves in a professional way, just to kind of keep the chat professional. Okay, so let us know. It's a good way to get people to participate. Okay. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to see. Yes, I'm gonna film some content today. I've got everything charged up. I got everything ready to go here on my end. But look for that content to be coming to you next week. Really excited about that. So my chat is a little bit slow to pick up this morning, and that's okay. So if you're just joining us, please let me know your city, state, province, country, and we'll go from there. We'll go from there as far as letting people ask questions, or people can really kind of set the agenda themselves, right? Whatever you'd like to talk about, I'm here for it. I'm ultimately here for you guys. I love taking on all comers because I never know what you guys are going to ask. So looking forward to it. So Naruto over on YouTube, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate you. Naruto says, I'm from India. Naruto, you can't just say India. India is a big country. Like, what part of India, right? It's to me, it seems almost disrespectful when people just say India. It's like, geez, that's a big country, Smitter, I don't think it's your first time. I think you've been here before. Remind me, let us know your city, state, province, country. Again, guys, we always ask people to introduce themselves. It keeps the chat professional, okay? So Naruto asks, okay, so Naruto says, I'm from Tamil Nadu, south of India. Nice, cool, thank you. So Naruto asks, is there anything for absolute beginners to get a job in this field? Okay, that's a common question. So Naruto, question for you is, if you're a beginner, is this the right time to be looking for a job? That's what I would like people to kind of consider. Like, is this the right time to be getting a job? Because I think that in your development, like your overall development, there's a time to learn and there's a time to work, right? So if you are if you're self-assessing yourself as a beginner, and that's okay, right? We all started somewhere. But that doesn't always make you the ideal candidate for work, right? So here's why that's important. One of the currencies, if you will, that you build up as a data scientist is your reputation, right? Your reputation is a form of currency in your career. So is there a danger of you harming your reputation as a scientist, as a person, if you are in a job that you're not qualified for? Or again, you are self-assessing as a beginner. So is this the right time for that? Because I think that's risky, right? I think that's risky in you could be doing more damage than good. Because what happens if there is a miracle and you land a job? What then? You're a beginner, right? That's kind of dangerous, right? So Naruto follows up, not a right time to get a job, but may I know the skills that needs to be learned to get a job? I'm well versed in Excel. Yeah. So Naruto, I can appreciate that this is your first time here. So I'm going to kind of just run you through the different things that I usually talk about, or really the things that I believe, right? Not just that I talk about, I believe these things. So a couple of things stand out in your message. One, data science is not Python, MySQL. It's not a collection of skills. Data science is a process. What is it that you're trying to solve, and how are you going to go about solving it? Right? Data science is the why and the how. Why are you doing this? How are you going to solve it? What's the process you're going to follow? Right? MySQL and Python, they're just tools. There's no requirement for you to use either one of those for data science, right? You could do data science on a piece of paper if you wanted to, right? So Naruto, I would ask you to think about that, because you're making very common mistakes for most beginners that I come across, right? And most beginners think, oh, I gotta learn Python. I gotta buy this neural networks course. No, you gotta learn what data science is. What is the process? What is the methodology you're going to follow? Everything else is like secondary to that and will come later, right? Pandas is not data science. Pandas is just something that you can use to manipulate data. But how you manipulate that data, how you choose to use those skills is data science. But you don't know that yet, right? So Naruto, I would recommend that you find yourself a good data science methodology and start understanding how it is that algorithms come to life. The second thing I would encourage you, Naruto, is you say the skills that need to be learned to get a job. It's not about getting a job. It's about becoming a professional in the business. Somebody doesn't think about becoming a doctor because they need a job in a hospital. They become a doctor because they're fascinated by the human body. They like biology. They like chemistry. They have some sort of personal connection to say, hey, I want to help people. I want to become a doctor that heals people, or something like that, right? That's why people become doctors, right? They don't become a doctor because they want the title of a doctor, right? They become a doctor because they have a personal connection to it, right? So Naruto, your goal should be to become a data scientist, to become a professional in the field, to establish your reputation, to build up your knowledge of data science. If you can do that, then the interviews will come. You'll pass the interviews no problem. The jobs will come. But to say I want to learn skills to pass the interview to get a job, that's not going to lead you to anywhere positive. So let me know what you think, Naruto. Again, I appreciate that it's your first time here, right? Garvik, good morning, and nice to see you. Hello, Dennis. Garvik, hello to you too. How are you? Hope you're doing well, my friend. Also, just kind of looping back here, Leo says, good morning, world. Hey, Leo, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for coming, my friend. Leo, adding to the conversation, says, well, we don't look for a job. The jobs look for us. That's the confidence level of today. All right, look at that. I like that. Positive thinking, right? You don't need the jobs need you. So I like that. I like that, Leo. Leo says, data science on paper. Please tell me you're not doing handwriting. I know, right? So for everybody else in the chat, we've been having this discussion about these handwritten data science notes. Have you guys seen these? They're really popular on social media. I'm sure you guys have seen these, where people will share their handwritten notes. They do it for a bunch of topics, but a lot of the ones I've seen are data science ones, right? Where people will post their notes, like, these pages and pages of handwritten notes, presumably from some sort of college class or something, right? And they'll post them online and people go crazy for them. They get hundreds of thousands of views, thousands of likes. And people love them. I am not a fan of them. I think that, it's a little weird and potentially dangerous. But that's what Leo's referring to. But Leo, to your point though, I have been, you guys know I do Sunday tutorials, right? And I have been racking my brain to try to do a Sunday tutorial on with pen and paper. I'm convinced it can be done. I just haven't come up with a good example for it. But one of these days, I am going to do a Sunday tutorial where it will be nothing but pen and paper. Give me some time. I'm going to come up with a way to do it, but I'm convinced that it can be done. So Garvit asks, are case studies helpful in understanding the data science process? Garvit, absolutely. Absolutely. And Garvit, I would add that to me, that is the most beneficial aspect of white paper. I am very, very cautious when somebody tells me, I read this white paper and I'm going to use the algorithm. I'm starting to write the code. Danger, danger, right? I think that taking code and implementing a white paper right away can be very dangerous. I hate that. I don't do it. I'm always hesitant when my staff suggests something like, right, when they tell me that, oh yeah, for this project, I'm gonna use this algorithm from this white paper. I always try to pump the brakes there. But what you're describing, Garvit, the data science process, is definitely something that I get from those papers. I get two things from the papers. I get their process and I get their creativity. That's the two things I think you can get from white papers. So the thing about data science methodology and kind of why it can be a little bit difficult for beginners to learn is because there's no single one way to do it, right? Everybody has their own little variations on the methodology. The general steps are accepted, right? Because it's the scientific method, right? You have a hypothesis, you design experiments to either prove or disprove the hypothesis, you collect the data, you run the experiments, you take the results and you interpret the results, right? But how you do each one of those exactly, it's kind of like, a little bit of interpretation there, right? So yes, Garvit, how people interpret those, like how do they collect the data? What experiments did they decide to do? Why did they choose this experiment and not this other experiment? What are the things that you can add to the paper? Looking at all those things are exactly the benefit of reading white papers, right? I think people sometimes get that wrong. They always rush to say, oh, this is the solution I need. I need this algorithm. I'm going to go type it up in pandas or Python or whatever, right? I don't know why I said pandas there, but go type it up in Python or whatever, right? But that's a mistake. But understanding the process, huge benefit of white paper. The second benefit is in that process, in reading how they did those things, is the researcher's opportunity, or in other words, your opportunity too, to be creative. How do you go about getting the data? Where did you source it from? Why did you source it that way? What did you include? What didn't you include? Why did you only do 5 years instead of 10 years? So on and so on, right? That type of creativity comes out in your papers, in your approach, right? And sometimes you may find opportunities in there where you can say, yeah, this paper sounds good, but I don't agree with how they did this. I think they should have done this, this, and this, right? So I'll give you guys an example of that. One of the best white papers I've read in recent years was a white paper on investing, right? Using an algorithm to automatically invest money in I think it was in the stock market or something like that, right? So by that description I just gave you, the paper's not great. There's a million papers like that, right? There's a million quantitative finance papers. Not very exciting, right? Like, it's almost kind of cliche, right? That you would try to do some sort of paper like that. The difference was that this guy, this researcher, he decided, most of those papers out there use some sort of indicator, a combination of indicators or a new indicator with the, price action does this, I'm going to do this, blah, blah, blah. This guy said, no. I'm not going to look at the indicators. I'm going to look at the bid-ask tables that show me the orders for buying and the orders for selling. And I'm going to look at the depth of them. And I'm going to look at the quantities involved, so on and so forth, right? So to me, that was a completely novel approach that, basically not many people had thought of, right? Because there really aren't a lot of indicators for looking at the buy and ask tables. And so he was looking at it, and so his variations were, well, do I just look at the top 10 orders? Do I look at the top 20 orders? Do I look at it as a trend? Like, what were the orders over the last 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right? Like he was basically treating the buy ask table as its own little mini quasi-independent data set that just so happened to give you information about stock price, right? So we completely ignored the candle charts and the trends and the moving averages and all that stuff and went for that. That's pretty creative, right? Like that's somebody who's thinking. So that's why that paper stuck in my mind, because he basically kind of took like a cliche problem and he made something of it, right? He said, well, hey, no, I know everybody's going left. I want to go right. I want to go in my own direction, right? So that's the kind of stuff that I think is valuable in white paper. When you can kind of sit back and say, oh yeah, okay, yeah, maybe I like what they did over there. Oh yeah, I'm thinking of running this, but then this person did it a little bit better, and I can combine ideas from these 3 papers that I read, and I can maybe do my own research. That's the real value in white paper. I think that's where you're really like using them, maybe not strictly as intended, but you're using them to kind of improve your own knowledge, right? To build your own skills. So Garvit, let me know what you think about that. Great question, by the way, Garvit. But yeah, I mean, it's something that I really spend a lot of time thinking about, because I'm kind of convinced that most data scientists out there don't always use white papers in the best way. They view it as a resource. They view it as a resource to build other tools, as opposed to as a resource for learning and building your own skills. Leo says, that's like analyzing the behavior by itself without considering what's influencing. Interesting. Leo, I assume you're talking about the financial paper example. Yeah, you're right about that, right? Because the behavior is the buy ask, right? Are people buying, or the bid ask, excuse me? Are people buying? Are people selling? And then without considering what's influencing, which I assume you mean the charts and the price action, right? But yeah, you're right, Leo. You're right. That is. I think that's maybe kind of the intent that the author was going for, where he treated the bid ask as its own little independent data set. I don't care what happens outside of this little data set. If I remember right, he had a little bit of success with the results. Most of those papers have trouble overcoming the transaction costs. But yeah, Leo, it is I think you're describing it accurately, right? That he's just accepting the behavior without really looking at the ups and downs of the market itself. But again, that paper stuck with me. Like when I read that, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like this guy's thinking, like this guy's, like genuinely putting in something new, right? And like we should all aspire to that, right? Garbett says, given that data scientists work on a wide range of projects, what are some questions I should ask the interviewer to learn more about how the position actually operates? So that's a great question, Garvit. So this is going to depend. This is going to depend on the position you're going after and the company. So Garvit, one of the questions that I always ask is, how many data science models do you actually have in production? That to me tells me a lot. Because Garvit, it's not really about how they operate. It's more about how they're going to use you. So again, I always ask, how many models do you have in production? Here's why. This is less of a problem now, but one of the problems that I had early in my career, and I still see it, not as much, but I still see it. There are a ton of companies who are very interested in data science. They're data science curious, as I like to say, but they're very shy when it comes to actually implementing the algorithms, right? Because it can be scary, right? It can be scary to say, hey, we've built our business doing things this way, and now the algorithm says we got to do things this way, and we're going to go ahead and go with what the algorithm says. You are going to get a ton of resistance doing that at any company, right? No matter how good you are, right? It's like the movie Moneyball, right? You know, if you guys see that movie, right? That movie is, the underlying is about data science, right? You're going to get a lot of resistance. So that's the first thing I want to know. So that's why I asked that question, because that tells me, has this team had success in actually deploying models? It tells you about the maturity of the company, where they are on the data science adoption cycle, right? Like, are they just talking data science, or are they implementing it? And I'm referring to like the management, you know, like the higher ups, right? And it also tells you about the team. It tells you about the data science team. It tells you about the data science team leadership. Has that team been successful in selling the company on the data science ideas, right? If they tell you the team has been around for 3 years and they have like 0 or like 1 model in production, danger, right? That's a leadership team, a data science leadership team that hasn't had success in selling their ideas, right? So that's why I asked those things, right? Is this company actually serious about implementation, and has the data science team leadership been successful in pushing forward those implementations? So that's what I want to know. Here's another reason why I want to know that. It's possible that they would tell you a lot of projects, right? Let's say they are further along in the adoption. And let's say they tell you, oh, we have 7 models in production, which wouldn't be a crazy number, right? There's companies out there like that. So now my curiosity becomes the maintenance side of it, because models don't just sit there. Models have to be maintained. They have to be retrained. They have to be tested. You know, maybe data collection methods need to be adjusted over time as new vendors come in. New pipelines, you know, come in, pipelines break, right? So if they tell you a lot of models, then it becomes, well, are you going to use me for maintenance, or are you going to use me for new models? Because that's, you know, 1, it's important to you, and 2, it's not something they would probably disclose to you straight up, right? Because, you know, nobody really gets excited about maintaining models or maintaining code, right? Even if you're like a software engineer, right? Not a lot of people get excited about maintaining code, right? So those are the 2 things I would look for, Garvit, right? Are they early in their adoption, or are they kind of later in their adoption? And then where would you fit into that, right? Because everybody wants to work on new models, right? I'm assuming you do too. Nobody grows up wanting to be a data science maintenance specialist, right? So those are the things that I would think about. You know, where is that team? Well, really the overall company in that adoption cycle, and how do you fit into that? Let me know if that makes sense, Garvit. But those are the questions I would be asking. Harris says, "Hey Dennis, how are you?" Harris, how are you? I believe it's not your first time here, but Harris, remind me where you're from. Remind me where you're joining us from, but I'm pretty sure it's not your first time. Leo says it's an interesting approach. Yeah, it is, Leo. It is. I'm gonna try to track down that white paper, because excuse me, sorry. I refer to it often, and it's been a while since I read it, so I'm gonna track it down. It'd be fun to go over it sometime. Morales, welcome. Nice to have you here. Morales, we always ask people to introduce themselves. Let us know your city, state, province, country. Okay. Garbett says, that's a great question, Dennis. Very useful. Yeah. Well, you're welcome. I think it's useful also. you can learn a lot from that one question, right? You can learn a lot about the team's progress. And then beyond that, Garvit, you should be asking about the team leaders themselves, because as I've always told you guys, and I know some of you are new, so I'll repeat this, data science is a learned profession, right? The more experienced people teach the less experienced people, right? Just like a lawyer teaches an older lawyer teaches a younger lawyer, right? So you're going to be learning from the people that hire you. You're going to be, these are the people that are going to be like teaching you along the way, right? So you want to make sure that they're willing teachers. Not everybody's willing to teach. And two, that they're good teachers. Not everybody's good at teaching, right? So that's kind of like, that would be like the next steps beyond that, Garbage. Sin over on YouTube, welcome. I think it's your first time. We always ask people, let us know their city, state, province, country, okay? Harris says they are from Pakistan. Today I come after a month ago. Okay, yeah, you're from Pakistan. That's right. Welcome back. Hope you're well. Happy New Year. Let us know what you've been up to, if you don't mind, or if anything you want to share, or any way we can help you. But it's good to see you again, Harris. I definitely remember you from last time. I just couldn't remember your location. I think you were a student too, if I remember right. Okay, so over on Kick, I'm Alex from Peru. Welcome. Nice to have you here. I don't have a lot of viewers from South America in general, so it's good to see that you're joining us from South America. I hear Peru is a beautiful country, so glad you're here. Alex, at this point in the stream, I open up to any types of questions or discussion that people have. Obviously, mostly data science, but we've discussed any number of things in the past. So if there's some way we can help you or something you want to ask, let us know. Recently, Garvit has been asking us about, we talked about white papers, and then we also talked about a couple of interview questions or interview thoughts, right? So Alex says, I'm interested in causality. Nice. Seems to be an increasing interest in causality for sure. So Alex, I don't know how far along you are in your learning. If you're pretty advanced, then I'm sure we'd have people interested in hearing your thoughts. I'm only marginally educated on it. I love the book by Judea Pearl, which I think is considered one of the top books in causality. It's something that I'd like to spend more time studying. Causality, I think, in many ways can be upsetting to data scientists, right? But yeah, if you have any thoughts you want to share on that, let us know, Alex, or anybody else, really. So if anybody else wants to talk about causality, that could be of interest. Joseph says, good morning, Dennis. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you too, Joseph. Hope you're doing well out there in Tennessee. Hope everything is nice and warm out there. Harris says, sorry for not attending your sessions, but from tomorrow, I will definitely join your sessions. Can you please remind me your live session timing again? So Harris, I stream at this time, 1500 GMT. So whatever time it is, whatever top of the hour is in your location, wherever you are in the world, 1500 GMT is what I usually tell people. And I do it Thursday to Monday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Sunday is when tends to be a little bit of a different session. It's when I do my tutorials, where it's a little bit longer, it's a little bit more instructional. I usually don't take questions on Sundays. And yeah, that's really my schedule. Now, Harris, the challenge is that next week I'm not going to be following most of that schedule because it is CES week. So as I started talking earlier, CES is starting today. So my streaming schedule is going to be a little bit weird. But I will stream tomorrow and I will stream Sunday. So you're welcome to come back. And then make sure you subscribe to all my platforms. I will be pushing out a lot of content for CES, a lot of really good stuff coming up. I'm basically going to be spending my entire days down at the convention center. And the other locations of the convention. So please join me. we're happy to see you back. And by the way, guys, there's never, ever, ever a need to apologize for missing my sessions. Honestly, I get a little bit concerned when I hear that, because the feedback I've received from some other people is that people kind of treat my sessions like a class, or like a college class that they're a part of. So when people stop watching, they kind of feel embarrassed about coming back. So I wouldn't want anybody to feel weird about coming back after not seeing for a couple episodes. That's totally okay, right? Like, we all have other lives and other things we do beyond data science. So I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, I don't want to go back because, I'm so embarrassed I missed class or whatever. Come back anytime you want. Go and come back as you please, right? I would never want somebody to stop their learning because, they're shy about it, or that, Professor Dennis is going to be mad. Everybody has to do what they have to do, right? We all have other lives, right? Well, maybe I don't, because all I do is data science. But, never have to apologize, guys. I'm finishing my coffee on stream today because I'm having such a different day today. I usually walk my dog and go for exercise after the stream, right? But today I had to do it early because after the stream today, I'm going to go down to the convention center. I got to run some errands. I got to have some breakfast before I go. I got to do all kinds of things. Today's a different day. So I'm finishing up my coffee because I got my coffee earlier today from my little Starbucks addiction. But after this, I have a long day ahead of me with going down to the convention center. I'm gonna do some filming, maybe do some posting from down there. It's gonna be a heck of a day. Sin over on YouTube, we ask people to introduce themselves. Let us know your city, state, province, country. We keep the chat professional. Okay. Leo asks, is there life beyond data science? Hopefully, right? I mean, you guys know how passionate I am about this stuff. I'm a total nerd for this stuff. So I don't know, Leo. People tell me there's other things besides data science, but who knows? Yesterday I made that post to show about the content that I push out, because I have people ask me like, yeah, I know you do data science, but what do you really do for work? Like this is work, right? I mean, data science is really all I do all day. I'm really passionate about this stuff, guys. So Garvit asks, there are many problems in data science that make training comparing models time consuming, possibly due to the amount of the data set or complexity of the model. What can I do in this situation? Should you do something in that situation? I don't know, Garvit. Should you do something in that situation? Anybody in the chat is welcome to give a reply there. But I mean, Garvit, the thing is this, that when I see your message, my reply is like, well, that's the work. Like, you're describing like the actual like nuts and bolts of what a data scientist truly does, right? Like, data scientists in many ways are kind of like surgeons, right? Surgeons kind of have a specialty, right? Like, and a surgeon doesn't come in until like the specialty is needed, right? The surgeon doesn't stay to sew the body back up. The nurses do that, right? So when you're talking about the training and the comparing models, like that's the work. That's what the data scientist does, right? Like, yes, we build pipelines and we do visualizations and presentations, but like the real core work, like why data scientists exist, is what you're talking about, right? So like, should you try to modify that situation? Like, my initial reaction is probably not, right? Like that's the work. So let me know what you think, Garvit, or if anybody else in the chat has an opinion on that. But like that's the job. Okay, so Sin says, hello from the sunny state of Arizona. Good morning. Well, good morning to you too, Zen. I know it's your first time here, so thank you so much. Glad to see you. So Sin says, what do you think of the Microsoft Data Science cert? I know that certs do not get you jobs, but I'm using it to increase my skills. Okay. I think that I've seen you on TikTok, if I remember right. I think we follow each other on TikTok. Because there is, okay, I'm pretty sure I know, I've seen your videos. I really appreciate how you're going about getting those certs. Because I think that you're getting other certificates beyond data science, maybe still within the Microsoft realm, but beyond data science. And I think you mentioned, okay, Sin says yes, yeah. And I think you mentioned that some of these certs are tied to your job in some way, right? Like they're either required or you get a benefit from them in your job. So I do need it for work and they are paying for it. Okay, cool. One, credit to your company for doing that. I think that the number of companies paying for certs advancement is getting smaller and smaller. So credit to your company for doing that. I'm not 100% sure on what kind of work you do, and maybe you don't want to say either. That's okay. I'm not asking. But credit to your company for letting you do that. As far as the Microsoft Data Science cert, I'm okay with any cert that people want to go after. Just try to not lock yourself into that company's cloud environment, right? Because usually there's like a cloud component or some sort of like proprietary component that they want to lock you into, right? And maybe it's not cloud-based, but they want you to use their tools, right? The Microsoft cert is going to teach you Microsoft tools, right? So just be careful with that. Be careful with making sure that you're taking whatever skills they teach you and you're able to do it on a variety of tools, right? So don't just learn, so something like that, they're going to teach you linear regression, but they're just going to teach it to you on Microsoft tools. Well, take that topic of linear regression and learn how to do it in your own native code, learn how to do it in AWS or whatever else you want to do it in, right? And I mentioned AWS because AWS is particularly bad for this, right? Because AWS is also so fragmented in how their different tools are that you're kind of not learning data science. You're learning the AWS way of doing data science, right? You're not learning how to make predictions. You're learning AWS SageMaker, I think, is their tool, right? So make sure you don't lock yourself into just being the Microsoft data scientist. You want to be a general data scientist. But like I said, I'm familiar with your content. I think you're going about it in a very reasonable way. I love your enthusiasm, when you're getting the books and putting in the work. So credit to you for doing that. Credit to your company for paying you to do, or paying for the resources to do that, right? But just try to make sure you're not locking yourself into that, right? Don't paint yourself into a corner by just being a Microsoft data scientist. You want to be a general data scientist, okay? And you know what, Sin, that's actually potentially a good way to learn AI, right? Like, it'd be kind of neat for somebody to say, okay, I'm going to go through this Microsoft book. The Microsoft Data Science cert. I'm going to take what they teach me, and then I'm going to go use that and go prompt a GPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, I just learned about Microsoft linear regression. Can you show me some Python code on how I can do that on my own? And then let ChatGPT do it, right? It's like an excellent prompt, right? It's like a really good prompt to take that, right? and say, hey, how can I do this without Microsoft tools? And then see what code it gives you, right? And then go run that code and modify it and, do your own research, right? But that might be something to think about. Sin says, goal advice. Well, if I helped you in some way, that's fantastic. But I think you're on the right track overall. So Leo says, I think Leo's looping back to the previous question. I'm a bit lost in the question. Training and comparing are not usually time consuming unless you're running up to 10 gigabytes and low on GPUs. Better to check what might be slowing down. If you're running something like light GBM, it might take some time on smaller data sets, but try increasing GPU's power or a different model. Sometimes we also do compare model's performance with more computational power, forgetting that from that skip some important features during EDA. So Leo, I think you're bringing up some great points, but maybe this is my fault. Maybe I should have asked for clarification, but I took it to mean that Garbett was asking about different models, right? Because that's usually the most time-consuming part of data science. Trying the different neural networks and then trying gradient boosting and then trying some clustering or whatever. Right? To me, like, that's the most time consuming because it's usually completely different code, right? And then there's also different hyperparameters for each one, right? So I don't think, I shouldn't say I don't. I took it to not mean like processing power or processing time. I took it to mean more about the different models. Because remember, guys, right? We talked about this champion model process. You have to try different models to call it a good data science process. You can't just start off with neural networks, find a neural network solution, and just say, I'm done, right? That's people do that, right? Don't get me wrong, people do that, but that's terrible data science, right? Garbett says, yes, Dennis, you got that right. Okay. Yeah. And Garbett, like I said, I just assumed that because from my experience, the projects that I've led and run, that's definitely super time consuming, right? So I get it, Garbett. I understand why you're saying that's a pain point. Totally get it. But yeah, that's what I would, so Leo, that's how I would answer your question. I'm pretty sure we weren't talking about the processing side. It's definitely more, as you point out in one of your comments, the different modeling side. Because you're kind of starting from a blank slate, right? Like, if you're running a proper champion model process, you'll go through and you'll say, okay, here's all my gradient boosting code, right? Which may have taken you some time to put together and the different hyperparameters. But then that's just gradient boosting. Like, that's just one possible model. And as I've said before, if somebody who works for me wants my sign off, I want to see them try at least, 6, 8, 10 models, depending on the model, on the problem we're trying to solve, right? So yeah, I mean, I get it. It's a pain. It's time consuming, but that's the job, guys. Like, that's the data science job, right? Like that's the work. Garbett says, is practicing functions and OOPS? I'm gonna assume you mean object-oriented programming. Important as I approach my first job because I generally do not use all of these in my methodology. Garbett, give me some more background there because I'm not fully understanding your question. I'm gonna guess that maybe you're using notebooks a lot because it'd be really hard to get far in Python if you're not using functions. So I'm guessing you're primarily in notebook space. Is that what you mean? Let me know. Let me know what you mean, Garby. Give me some more background there. Harris, bear with me. if you put your question in the chat, I promise I'll see it. But I'm trying to get to everybody, right? We're trying to share here. So bear with me, okay? Hera says my previous question. Hera says, can you please guide me a little bit in how these discussion sessions help me in my data science career, other than the Sunday class? It's up to you, right? It's up to you what you get out of it. It's up to you where you're at in your data science study and in your data science practice. My entire goal here is to give you guys, one, I don't sell cheap courses or any of that nonsense. And two, I try to give you guys from my real world experience, right? What you get out of that is really up to you, right? You have to take some of this and go practice and study on your own, right? Leo obviously does a lot of his own experimentation. Sin is talking about pursuing a particular certificate. Garvit was asking about, maybe pursuing a job or how to improve his methodology. So it's up to you, Harris, right? This isn't really something where I'm trying to spoon feed information, right? I'm just trying to provide a community and a space for people to talk. People can show up with any kind of questions they want. I do my best to help, but how it guides your own growth is up to you, right? There's just too many variables there. Your background, your desires, your project experience, but feel free to keep on asking questions. Feel free to learn from the questions other people ask, right? We had great questions on white papers earlier, but really how you use it is up to you. Data science is kind of beautiful that way, where you determine your own career path, the growth, the speed, right? It's up to you how much time you want to invest in it. So I hope that helps, Harris. Garvit says, yes, I use notebooks a lot. Okay, so danger, right? That's another thing I advocate for. And maybe, Sin, this also ties back to your earlier question, because I think that some of the Microsoft certs are based in notebooks, I think. Or, their own interface, right? It's not an easy transition going from like a learning mode to a professional mode. But that transition absolutely begins by using your own code in Python programs, not scripts, but Python programs, and getting away from notebooks. The saying is always, you can't deploy a notebook, right? A notebook is not really something you can hand over to a DevOps team or an MLOps team and say, hey, here's my code. That's just not the way the real world works. So Garvit, you're asking about OOP, you're asking about functions. So the goal is not to use more functions. The goal should be to get away from notebooks. If you do that, everything else will come naturally, right? Because that's kind of like the dirtiness of notebooks, right? That they don't require you to use functions. Notebooks is very much sequential processing, right? I know, you can use functions if you wanted to. There are ways to do it. I get it. But you're not really getting the same level of experience in creating your own programs and scripts. And you're really, really not getting the object-oriented programming side of it, right? So I would encourage you to get away from notebooks as quickly as you can, and everything else will come after that, right? Everything else will kind of naturally fall into place. Maybe you're not going to learn advanced aspects of object-oriented programming by doing that alone. You might have to do other study aside from that, but you'll help yourself out a lot, right? So keep that in mind, okay? But Garvit, that's what I would tell you, right? Like there is no solution to, hey, here's how you use functions more. There's no solution for that. But if you get more into the native Python, it will naturally develop itself, okay? I think it's Anise over on Instagram. We always ask people to introduce themselves. Let us know your city, state, province, country, and we'll go from there. Okay. Harris says, it means I can get real world experience from the industry related persons. Yeah, sure, Harris. Yeah. From myself and also from the community, right? So Harris, we also have a Discord where we try to help each other. If somebody comes in and asks a question, I try my best to reply, or maybe somebody else in the community will reply. But data science isn't something that should be done in a vacuum, right? Data science is something that you should be doing with other people's inputs, other people's perspectives. Hey, I see it this way. How do you see it? Oh, you see it that way? Oh, I didn't think about, right? So the value is also in the community, in talking things out, in presenting your ideas, right? And also being open to that feedback, right? That's an important part of data science that not all people do well, right? So that's all part of it. That's all part of it, okay? But yeah, getting it from industry-related people, from other people who are still studying, other people that are pursuing certificates, or, I think Garvit today is asking some great questions about like progressing into like a more professional approach, right? Because, that's something that's probably not talked about enough, right? There's the student side of data science and there's a professional side, right? And, it can be challenging to make that transition. Very challenging. So Harris says, thanks, Dennis. You have solved my confusion. Well, I hope so. I mean, I don't know, guys. Sometimes I think I'm just talking and I have no idea if I'm helping people, right? But if I've helped you in some way, great. I'm glad to hear it. It's not always easy to know what to do, but the important part is to stay engaged, keep on coming back, keep on learning from others, keep on being curious, and things will improve, right? Things will get better. So Sin is adding, at work we use R, but I do have the ability to use Python and Visual Studio. I am trying to use it. We do more data analysis, but slowly bring in more data science to the job. Great. Fantastic. That's a very common path, right? It sounds like your company is early in the adoption of data science, but that's okay. If you, as an individual, are have decided to do more Python and more Visual Studio, then that's great, because that's somebody that would put you ahead of the curve, right? Because what I've usually seen in these situations that Sin is describing here is, over the long term, you see these companies use R less and less and less. It tends to kind of get phased out. And that naturally happens with the more algorithms that you deploy. Because where R tends to fail is that R is not great at implementation when multiple people or other apps or other integrations need to happen with your algorithms, right? R is fantastic for, I have this problem, I have this data, I want to solve it in a single environment, get an answer, and move on with my life. R is excellent for that. That is what R was kind of intended to do. That's kind of like the community it came out of. So keep that in mind. But Sin, I think you're on the right track with Python and Visual Studio, because that puts you ahead of that. Because I don't know how fast your company moves, but if your company continues on this trajectory, I guarantee you're going to see that Python usage drop and drop and drop, right? But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I've usually seen happen at a variety of companies. And again, guys, I'm not poo-pooing R. My graduate studies were in R. I spoke at an R conference. R is very useful in many things. But the more you grow, the more you work on enterprise level, distributed algorithms, larger algorithms, you kind of start to see like the the limitations of R, right? Garvit says, how can I transition from notebooks as you mentioned? Stop using notebooks. The next time you work on a project, the next time you want to follow a tutorial, the next time you want to do whatever, use Visual Studio instead, right? Start up with a blank, .py file, right? Don't start with the notebook file or the Jupyter file. Start with a .py file, right? Or just as I told Sin earlier, use this as an opportunity to start building some of your AI prompting skills. You could go right now to ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, I want to start writing a Python program, not a script. Show me a template for a Python program that has an entry point for the for a main method, and it'll do that. We've done it. We've done it on the Sunday tutorials. I'm pretty sure that's one of the prompts we ran. Just show me a basic template for how to do a Python program with a main entry point. And it gave it to us, and it gave us a very reasonable template that I've used in the past, or the similar structure I've used in the past. So that's a way to do it, Garbit, right? You can kind of kill two birds in one stone, right? Start getting away from notebooks and start using more AI prompts. You could do that like literally today. And then you might say, here, ChatGPT, here's some code I did. Can you put this into a function for me? Or a method or whatever you need, right? And then start building up from there. So looping back to Sin, yes, we are very early. No SQL, we use PowerShell. Okay. I am fighting for SQL to get it. We are slow. Okay. Well, that's okay, right? I mean, any database implementation at any company is like a big deal, right? Like, it's expensive, it requires a lot of servers, it takes time, people are hesitant to move their data, right? Like, I just love when people tell me that, oh, I don't want to learn MySQL anymore, I want to learn the latest and greatest because that's what I want to work with. They woefully overestimate how quickly companies are willing to change their database. Like, do you know how long a database migration takes at a large company? Like, you are not going to be working on the latest and greatest. You're going to be working on whatever the last version was that worked well, that nobody wants to touch, right? Nobody wants to upgrade it. Nobody wants to patch it. The server works. It has critical data on it. Nobody move. Nobody breathe. It's working. We don't want it to break, right? So Sin, totally understandable that your company wants to do that. Like take a slow approach, right? It's a big deal. Plus it's expensive, right? I mean, I know what I used to be a big SQL Server fan. I used to do a lot of work in SQL Server. And I know what the licenses cost back then. I can't imagine what the licenses are now, right? It's expensive to bring in a new database, right? So totally understandable, totally common, Sin. But you do what you can with what you have, right? That's part of life. But yeah, database packages are not going to change quickly at any company, right? And perhaps they shouldn't, right? I mean, I remember for me, I had a period in my life where my colleagues and we had to do a couple of 24-hour shifts because we were on the phone with Microsoft and we had these massive problems. And it was all around a database cluster, right? I mean, it was an upgrade that went wrong. Upgrading a database cluster is not like a painless thing. Like there's a lot of nervous people when that happens, right? So be careful with that, guys. Sin says, you nailed it. We are not bringing SSM because it's expensive. Yeah, absolutely, guys. Yeah. Like I said, I love it when people say like, oh yeah, I'm going to go work on the latest Hadoop and the latest this and the latest that. And it's like, do you know how much that costs? Like, do you think the companies just have like the money lying around? Like they'll happily just keep like, you know, their old rickety MySQL server because it works and it's cheap, right? Like, nobody wants to touch that. Like, and what's that mean? Ain't nobody got time for that. Like, you want me to upgrade the database server? I'm busy. I don't want to touch that. I don't want to be here all night for the next 3 days. But yes, and you're describing, you know, very common growing pains. So, you know, just hang in there. Your company is just doing just fine. Totally standard stuff. Is it Fatima? Fatima on Instagram? Fatima, we always ask people to introduce themselves. Let us know your city, state, province, country. You know, keep the chat professional. But I see you over on Instagram. I think it's your first time. But we always ask people to, you know, start off with that. And again, guys, as I say, the reason I ask people to do that is because your professional demeanor is super important in data science. Remember, from the business person's perspective, you're selling them a dream, right? You're selling them like some fantasy, right? Hey, I got this algorithm for you, and this algorithm is based in math, and we took all this historical data, and it does wonderful, fantastic things for you and your business. Right? Like the business people have to buy into that, right? Like you're selling them a dream, like some cloud in the sky that they don't understand it, but it sounds pretty cool, right? So how you carry yourself, how you introduce yourself, how you run meetings, how you talk, how you address people is part of that sale, right? Because they're going to be like, I have no idea what a neural network is, but I trust you and let's go for this. Like that's kind of the sign off you're looking for, right? So that's why I encourage you guys, introduce yourself, right? Be professional. You know, for me, like when I was like a senior data scientist and, you know, certainly as a leader and all that, 3/4 of success in my job was being able to stand up and say, hey, good morning, everybody. How are you? Hope everyone's having a good day. My name is Dennis Salguero. I'm your chief data scientist. I lead a team of 7 different data scientists, and we've been putting in a lot of work on your sales problem. And today I'd like to talk to you about the results that we've come across and what it can mean for your business. Like that's like 3/4 of the job, guys, right? So that's why we ask people, introduce themselves, say hello. How are you? Greet the chat. Really important, guys. Super important. I'd rather take training courses on that than like every like Python course available, right? So there's a method to my madness, guys. For everything I ask of the chat and the communities. Just things I've learned over my experience. Remember, I'm an old guy, right? I'm just trying to share my experience with you guys. All right, so we're coming up on an hour. So last call for questions, but we've had a really good discussion. It's a really good discussion for a Friday. I love the variety of stuff that you guys mentioned, right? We've covered white papers, we've covered jobs, we've covered R, we've covered notebooks and scripts and programs and all that. So really good stuff, really good stuff. Sin says, I really appreciate how in a previous video you mentioned that data science is an applied science. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's not theoretics, right? You actually got to get out there and do stuff, right? And not everybody's great at that, right? Not everybody is great at making that transition or, you know, being able to leave that academic life and do it. But yeah, it's an applied science. It's an applied science for sure. All right, guys. So like I said, I have a long day ahead of me today because I'm going to start some of my CES stuff. So please follow me on all my platforms. I'm going to be putting out a lot of CES content over the next week. I will be streaming again tomorrow, Saturday, and then Sunday we're going to do a tutorial. I don't know what the tutorial is yet, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, really appreciate everyone's participation today. Lots of really good questions. Come back tomorrow. Keep on coming back. Don't be shy about coming back. I don't want anybody to feel like they can't come back because, you know, they missed class or whatever. It's just discussion, guys. You're not going to disappoint me or anything. But, you know, we're still living in crazy times. We got to worry about bird flu and pandemics and UFOs. So I worry about all of you. So please take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and I'll see you next time.